Hi, and welcome to Power of the Network. I'm your host, Tim Locker, Vice President of Broadband here at CBM. Today, we've got a special guest for you. Today, we've got Mr. Jake Irwin. He is the Senior District Sales Manager for the North Central U.S. for Dura-Line. I've had the pleasure of working with him for the last 4 years or so, and if you haven't met him yet, I'm glad you're going to get the opportunity to do so here. So, great young guy. He's real aggressive, doing a real good job for us and for Dura-Line, and we're happy to have him on the show. Follow along. Jake, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time, and I'm glad you could be here with us. Let's get right into it. You've been with Dura-Line, a little over 4 years now?
Yeah, just over 4 years.
You've really managed to advance yourself pretty quickly. So, but we joke around. I remember way back when, 4 years ago when you first started, we, taking this kind of little baby face kid in to see these customers. But you've really grown a lot of respect from people in the industry really quickly, and I think that shows just by how fast you've come along in your career. But what are some of the things that you think helped you, kind of get through that initial challenge, I guess, if you will?
Right. So I guess kind of my background is I started in the telecom world, but not necessarily outside plant, right? So I started with a company called Subtle, who's now owned by Primex. And it was more of like a media panel where they're transitioning fiber to coax, or it's all coax, whatever they're doing. They're putting modules in this media panel and then going throughout the apartment, typically apartments. So I started there for a few years, and with that was a big learning curve as there was a ton of turnover. I got the opportunity to go into kind of an outside sales, more customer facing rather than just over the phone, which was a big jump, right? It takes a lot of confidence to go see some people you've never met. So that was kind of kudos to my boss giving me that opportunity and kind of helped me build confidence. And then, when that was kind of fizzling out, I decided to go to a wireless internet company, right? A WISP. And I was only there for a quick 6 months, and I was a project manager there. Decided I want to go back into sales, and ended up, finding Dura-Line. And this industry was pretty new. I had some background in the wireless world, but I think what comes with a lot of success is just being confident and leveraging your network, whether it was you, Tim, whether it was my boss, Eric, my former boss, Catherine, just going in there with confidence and being able to, serve those customers and do what you told them you were going to do.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And, I remember early, maybe in your first month or two, a conversation that you had with, one of our bigger customers, where somebody was trying to take advantage of you, and you kind of put them right in their place. And I mean, that got my respect right away. So, I think, you don't judge a book by the cover, obviously.
Right. Right.
So, young versus old. Are you seeing, obviously with Dura-Line, we've seen, a hiring trend of, a lot of younger folks, now coming into Dura-Line. Is there a purpose behind that? Is that something that is an industry trend? Should other companies look at doing the same thing?
Yeah, I think we're seeing that shift, right? We're seeing quite a bit of turnover from, what we call boomers, right? To younger people coming into this industry. And what a lot of people say, and I think you said it yourself, is, this was kind of a hidden gem of an industry that it's not talked about much in, undergraduate programs in colleges and places like that. It's kind of a hidden industry that's really, really growing right now.
Yeah.
Right. So I think the more that the word's getting out, the more that it's hitting the news, you're seeing more and more younger people be interested in this, as well as the people who are in this industry are recruiting, some of the younger folks that they talk to that, hey, this isn't a bad place to have a career.
So, so many new people coming into the industry, let's say you take somebody younger and they don't necessarily have the knowledge. Where's that balance between, being willing and able to ask questions, but also, trying to not seem like, you don't know anything.
Right.
What do you...
Yeah. So I guess coming into this for me, even, right, I didn't know a ton about underground construction or outside plant, utility, broadband. All those things were new to me as well. And you kind of just have to find, that person that's willing to help teach you how to do those things and how to learn, how to design a network or how to install conduit or fiber or what that is, and be able to just ask questions, as many questions as you can, and just try to be a professional on how these things work, right? You can't be afraid to ask a dumb question because you don't know if you don't ask.
Yeah.
So I think being able to lean on some people, and then even if you ask a dumb question to a customer, I mean, they're probably happy to help you, right? You're new into the industry, and if you're upfront with them, you're trying to learn. Also, there's a ton of materials from Dura-Line that you can gain a lot of knowledge from. We have a program called Dura-Line Academy now that is very, very good at teaching people all different kinds of aspects of the industry. So it's a very beneficial tool, and I think a lot of people can use that.
Yeah, I think you're right too. I think people respect it more if you ask than they do if you try to make believe that you know. We've had some newer employees in the past that we've done some things where we've actually sent them just to go work with a customer. Go spend a week in the splice trailer with them and just learn how to do that stuff. And what I found is the customers actually like that. They want to help train your people. I think they get more invested in that when they feel like they have an impact. So I think you're spot on. I think you have to ask those questions and not fake it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can sit here and be professionals about duct, but what goes along with duct, right? So being able to sit with a customer who deals with other aspects of duct or the industry, it's really beneficial for that person to learn all those things. So I think it's a really good move.
Yep, I agree. So younger versus older, we're in the midst of looking for some, new folks to join our team too. And what I've realized is I'm an old guy. I don't know if anybody else, caught on to that, but it's kind of hit me. I've been in the industry a long time, and as I, think back, I started here. I think I was 32 or so, and that's been a long time ago. So, trying to find new talent, I think sometimes we find ourselves looking for ourselves, and I don't know if that's maybe that's not. Nobody's out there like that anymore. I don't know if people, as the generations change, I think it's hard to find. And that's what you're looking for, I guess. Or maybe I'm not looking for the right thing. I guess.
I think that's what it is, right? Is generations look for people that are similar to them. And it's never going to be that way, right? Yeah. Technology, right? Our industry, technology has changed so many things. People just grow up differently. Their values maybe are a little different than we want to work hard and do these things, which is very important, right? They just have different maybe values or goals than what you did at 32.
Different habits,
Yeah.
We have a lot of, I think just in general, a lot of people say, oh, these young kids, they can't do it and they don't want to work. And I don't agree with that. There's a lot of young kids that are really busting it. That's a fact. We see a lot of that. There may be some that don't want to, but in general, I mean, there's some really good upcoming talent, but, just habits. Like I look at my son and, I'll have a question. And that question will sit in my head for a while, and he'll be like, "Oh yeah, here's you answer it because that's just how we're raised. It's just a generational difference." So speaking in terms of generations, what do you do differently in your role than the guy before you?
So the guy before me was also relatively young, but so what I've done to kind of adjust is I've taken bits and pieces, like I talked about kind of earlier, is bits and pieces of people that I trust and ask questions, and I've been successful in this industry and kind of mold that into how I approach things, right? My approach is I always want to be, do everything I can for the customer, right? I want to be the person that's facing Dura-Line for the customer. I want to be that negotiating tool and be that middle person. Also, moving forward, I want to find the next big project, right? So I'm never satisfied, right? It's great to win one, but what's next, right? There's always got to be more, and you can't settle, and you always got to kind of be hungry to find that next thing and be able to help that next customer.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point. You know, for me too, I share the same value. It's always about the customer.
Right.
You know, it doesn't matter what line we're talking or what product, but yeah, we're there to help them. And I think sometimes, you know, they don't necessarily always understand that. I think, you know, salespeople typically get a kind of a bad rap. You know, they throw out the typical, you know, used car salesman type, and people don't want to be sold to like that.
Yep.
But I think also sometimes they'll put a wall up and not realize that we're here to help.
Right.
You know.
And there's also, you know, a point of that to where it's to a fault, right? So there's people who have been in the industry or with Dura-Line for a very long time, and they continue to call on those same customers that they've trusted and built, you know, the relationship with.
Yeah.
There's more, right? This industry is growing so fast. There's always more people to go find. And I think that's the difference between maybe somebody who's been in this role for a long time, not saying everybody, right? But somebody who's been in a role like this for a long time, they tend to go where what's comfortable and not go find, oh, hey, this brand new customer is going to build $1 million network. We're not going to call on them because, you know, it's uncomfortable and we got to make a cold call again. I just know my good old boys, and I'm just going to, you know, keep calling on them because it's comfortable.
I think that's common in any industry, you know, just in sales in general. You hit it right on the head. You're going to do what's comfortable. You know, and it's interesting though. So you're newer to management, right? In the last, year or so?
Yeah.
Roughly. How has that transition been? Because, I mean, I feel like you still have that drive to go out and make sales, but then you also have to, you know, balance the leadership aspect. So what does that look like?
Yeah, it's been a change, right? So a majority of it has been just the hiring process. So just hiring the team, which I think is a huge part of being a success in management, is having a team that, you know, believes in what you believe and is also, you know, willing to go hustle and be successful, right? They have that drive. But yeah, I mean, it's been a change, right? So I have somebody that backfilled my position, and letting go of some of those things that I've had. It's been difficult, but as a manager and for the best for our company, I need to be that guy who's, you know, more supportive, right? And help them make maybe some of those tough decisions or have some of those tougher phone calls, and be able to have that support for them to lean on. So it has been a little different. It's also been super exciting to help watch people succeed and find new things. So it's
a challenge too, because you and I have shared the same territory, and you know, watching somebody else in your territory, you know, they're going to do it different than you did, and so it's hard to sit back and not. Try to get in there, and
I 100% agree.
But you have to let them, you know, go their own way. They're going to find their own comfort zone, you know, really, which you want. Like, it's kind of a tough balance because you want to have that comfort zone where you do have relationships, but then you do have to challenge yourself too.
Right. And you know, another part of that is their success is your success. So you're kind of like, hey, you know, this is how maybe I would do it. You can do it however you want, but like, maybe let's push them in that direction. And maybe that's a mindset I probably need to adjust eventually here. But, you know, just try to get them on the right path, because, you know, their success is also mine.
Yeah. And everybody's different. So one of your guys is going to behave totally different than the next.
The next. And, exactly.
And so, understanding how they operate individually is probably something you have to work on, learn their,
right. You got to find their motivating tools, right? What motivates you, and how do we continue to grow on that?
Yeah. What makes CBM different? First and foremost, I believe it's our ESOP. Employee owners make different decisions. They value our customers, they value our manufacturers, and we're going to do what's right for each of them. So they behave in a different manner. You know, we represent different lines in commercial industrial market, utility market, and also the communication market. These markets are overlapping more and more every day, and the ESOP and the way we're structured actually allows us to be more flexible and cover those markets and put our expertise where they need to be. So if you're looking for a manufacturer's rep with high quality sales staff, good relationships, look no further than CBM. You can find us right here at cbmrep.com. How do you find that? What are you looking for?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I guess I'm motivated, just like I kind of talked about earlier. I always want to find the next big thing. So, I find a big project and it's, super successful. Okay, what's next, right? What's coming down the pipeline, and continuing to build off that. And then also just seeing customers have positive feedback, right? So if I worked really hard from a Dura-Line perspective to make a project or a customer successful, it's super motivating for me and just fulfilling to do things like that.
How do you identify that motivation within your individual with your team?
Yeah, so like I said, it's tough. So a lot of people are either motivated by money or success, or just having a good call and being able to be home with your family at night. People are motivated by so many different things. It's kind of hard to identify it right away. The more you kind of got to understand them personally to get them to that point, right? So say a guy is super happy and super proud that he made 3 sales calls to this person because, they were going out of their comfort zone. They weren't just going to be an order taker, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. I'm glad you're home. But what are you going to do next, right? So how are you going to grow on that? And then now next time you make 6 sales calls, 4 of them go good. Now you're even happier, right? So what does that motivation look like is still something that you got to try to identify.
And you touched on, how they're personally motivated. You kind of have to go down that path. You have to know your people on a very personal level. But then, as a leader, it's also a challenge because, you develop a friendship by doing that as well. So, how do you maintain that balance between, still having a strong leadership position, doing all of those things, and then also, not crossing too far into the friend zone, but
Right. Yeah. And that happens, right? You become friends with, which is awesome, right? It's great to be that close to your employees, but you also have to understand that we are all here, right? Because of our company Dura-Line, right? So we have to look at what's best for Dura-Line. And if you're not kind of doing those things, then you can't be scared to have those tough conversations. They're not fun, but you can't be scared to have those tough conversations and just tell them outright, hey, this is what's happening, and this is where we need you to be or need you to go.
In those tough conversations, it could be with an employee, could be with a customer or distributor, you name it. But going back to confidence, that's what allows you to do that. And I think everybody appreciates it when, there's a relief after those conversations have been had. Everybody's on the same page. Okay, we get it.
Yep.
But it's certainly a challenge to.
And the most important thing I think when having those conversations is don't procrastinate on it. Because then as a manager, right, then it just kind of eats you up and you're just kind of pushing it back, hoping it gets better. Well, they don't know what they don't know. You got to be able to just go tell them. Or same thing with a customer, right? We're late on an order. You don't want to call them or tell them we're late. Just call them and get it over with. And then everyone's on the same page and you can deal with the backlash later.
Yeah, no, totally agree. So what new market trends are you seeing in the industry?
Yeah, so one of the big ones, right, is Dura-Line and Microtechnology. Yep. So Microtechnology has grown significantly over the years, and you've been a huge part of that in helping Dura-Line grow that. But within Microtechnology, microtrenching has been more and more popular. And I know it's had some faults, right? Even here in Kansas City, down in Memphis, I know there's some cities that really struggled with it, but the technology has really improved. And it's had a lot of success.
Mostly the technology in the filler, the backfill?
Yeah, it's the filling that comes, after they vacuum it out, they'll saw it in, place the conduit or fiber, and then they'll put that backfill. And that was, that I believe that company, maybe don't quote me on this, but that company that originally had the backfill went out of business, and now somebody has, a better one.
There's new technology. I think it was mostly a frost heave issue up north. So yeah, traditionally we've seen it kind of bigger in the south, Texas and Arizona and down in that market, but we're starting to have a little more success up in the northern parts.
The northeast, the Midwest over in Ohio. They've had some success doing it, and the benefit of it is you can just install so much so quickly, right? You can do, I believe it's 5 times faster than any normal, even Microtechnology, right? Just standard Microtechnology. You can install 5 times faster, and the homes passed. When you're doing it that fast, the cost also decreases, right? So the upfront cost for everything may look a little expensive, but by the time you implement how long it took you to do, you save a ton of money on that as well.
Yeah, so I think if you're looking at, by the foot in terms of the saw cut, that's kind of the main expense.
Right. And the equipment, right? There's quite a few contractors that have the equipment now. I know the equipment is a significant investment.
Yeah.
But I mean, from Dura-Line, we have a ton of partners on it, and if someone's interested, we can bring them to a job site and show them how it works and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Dura-Line's very good at, if somebody is interested in a new process, we're very good at doing those trainings and getting them to see all those things and have some hands-on experience.
Yeah, no, that's great. So we even let's go back to just traditional micro, 4-way, 7-way, future path, et cetera. We have seen significant growth, but it still seems like we have some of the same challenges. What are the biggest things you think we need to overcome?
Yeah, I mean, recently is, and maybe we'll talk about competition in a little bit, but competition has become so strong. The cost of standard conduit has come down so much, and the also competition in micro has also came in hot and heavy recently as well. So that's been a big challenge, is just the upfront cost, right? CapEx versus OpEx, right? We've all talked about it.
Yep.
You may save a ton of money using micro, but you may not have the upfront costs to do something like that. So I think that's the biggest challenge we're facing recently, just because the cost of standard conduit is so cheap, really. Yeah. I mean, if that's what we want to call it.
Well, and even just a few years ago, when we went through everything with COVID and the prices go up, and I mean, it was almost 3 times what it is now.
Yeah.
It's a little easier because, traditional duct went up at a much greater rate than what the micro did. So it kind of leveled them out a little bit. But
and Dura-Line's addressing that issue now, right? Yeah. I mean, we have to continue to push what we're focusing on, right? We see that that's the future. We know it's going to benefit, whether it's a city, whether it's a utility, whether it's a ISP, whoever is utilizing it. There's so many use cases for it that will actually benefit the customer significantly. It's just a better asset than having some 1.25 or 2 inch sitting in the ground.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question. For years and years, I've heard it, people just say, duct is duct. So what's the price? It's kind of become a commodity item, but, would you say true or false? Duct is duct.
I would say it's 75% true. And I say that because if you think about, what duct's made of, it's made of resin, which is obviously a commodity. And also, if you think about the last 3 years, probably, we went from 6 or 7 competitors to 25, right? In 3 years. I mean, that's significant. So entering the market must not have been that big of a challenge for a lot of these competitors, because you're buying a commodity, you buy the equipment, it's kind of self-efficient. I guess where I say it's false is the quality of that, right? So who's operating these machines? Are they buying the correct resin that meets, the standards that the Plastic Pipe Institute writes? Are they meeting those standards? And then also, from a Dura-Line perspective, if something goes wrong, are they going to be able to take care of you? From Dura-Line, if you have, God forbid, you have a quality issue, but if you do, someone's going to be out there within a week, if
Yeah.
not a couple days, and we're going to take care of you, and we're going to make sure things are right. So yeah, I would say it has commoditized just because of the competition that's joined
Yeah.
the market.
Yeah. No, I would agree too, though. I think a lot of people kind of have the misunderstanding too. A traditional, let's say, 1.25" orange duct, there's no UV in there, correct?
Correct.
I mean, it's orange duct. And I think there's a difference, in, people buy it by the truckload, so it might sit in somebody's yard for 6-8 months or whatever, and it's sitting there taking all the sun. And, I think there is a quality issue from one manufacturer to another, or quality concern, I guess, if you will. Not all of it's going to sit in the yard for 6 or 8 months and still not be brittle and check
Right.
and have issues going in the ground. So even though, it's a commodity product and the cost is, down in the dirt right now, quality does matter
Right.
when you're putting that product in the ground, the quality matters.
Yeah, and I would say there's very few competitors that have the quality assurance process that we've implemented, which helps avoid a lot of those things. And if we know you're going to keep it in the yard for 2 years, maybe we do talk about some UV inhibitants or whatever that looks like, right? So,
Yep, for sure. So I think you and I both understand the value of good relationships. But what do you think Dura-Line does best from a corporate standpoint to help build long-lasting relationships?
right. And I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that Dura-Line's maintained, very large customers for a very long time. And that's kind of how Dura-Line got to the point where they are, right? And the way we do that is we just service them as well as we possibly can, right? Our operations, our executive team, our sales team, we're all on the same page that we want to make the best quality product and service to the best of our abilities to these customers, right? So whatever we can do to make that customer's life easy, Dura-Line does, as well as, hey, if there is some sort of issue, right, Dura-Line's going to be there to take care of it, right? We're going to address it. If you have, an idea that, say, we want to install our pipe or put our pipe on a different reel, whatever, Dura-Line is, we have the abilities to adjust and help those customers do those things.
What I've seen over the years too, customers will come up with some pretty wild ideas sometimes when maybe they want some hybrid micro product or whatever, and I've noticed we've got the talent, we've got the engineers that can put some oddball kind of packages together and actually do that relatively quickly. So I think that's pretty impressive to kind of show the flexibility of what we can do.
Yeah, we have a pretty good, a really, really good R&D team, and that runs stuff all the time. Testing new things, new markets, all these new things that they do on a daily. And some of those things, right? It's just sometimes those are just a customer kind of fighting the medicine, as we call it, right?
Yep.
They're fighting the medicines, trying to reinvent the wheel, and we're like, yeah, we'll do it. But it probably makes more sense just to do these things that we make millions and millions and millions of feet of. But we can do this, right? If this is what you want. So yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. One more plug for Dura-Line Academy. Where do we find that?
Yeah, so you can go to our website, and there's a Dura-Line Academy up in the top right corner, and you can sign up, and there's probably 20, 30 mini courses that you can take. There's some Bixby credits on there as well. And if you have, any issues with logging in or signing up, you can reach out to CBM or Dura-Line, and we can get you straight away.
Yeah.
And also if there's, some sort of company or contractor that's continuously hiring people, we can actually customize it to them as well, right? So obviously,
so you can make their own kind of corporate plan,
exactly, and
training program,
and we can implement it into their training or whatever they're doing. We've seen more and more of that. So I know labor is kind of an open door, right, for some contractors and some internet service providers. So yeah, if you're constantly training new people, we can definitely help with that.
That's awesome. Well, Jake, thanks again for coming in. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure to watch you grow, and I'm proud of what you've done over the, just simple short 4 years at Dura-Line. But it's a pleasure working with you, and we can't thank you enough.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and I appreciate all the things you've taught me to help grow me to the success, CBM as well. So, thanks.
Awesome. Thanks again for joining us on Power of the Network, and special thanks again to Jake. We appreciate you taking the time to come in and visit with us. I really appreciate your perspective on some of the stuff we discussed today. Please remember, like, share, subscribe to the show, and don't forget, if you need help with a project or expert advice from a quality sales force, look us up here at CBM at cbmrep.com. We'll see you next time on Power of the Network.